Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Take Two Podcast. This is a specialty episode of Take Two Podcast where we are going to be breaking down my favorite horror franchise of all time, Scream. Scream 5, Scream 22, just Scream in general. That drops this weekend, and I could not help myself because me loves me some Screams. If you guys are watching on the YouTube, you just saw me be a dork for a second and wear my Scream mask. I've had this bad boy, I'm not kidding, since 1996. A friend of mine that I went to high school with then knew someone who could get the mask. Like, this is before everybody and their mom could get the mask, and ordered it, and like they sent it up, and so I've had it ever since. This little baby, it's pretty cheap now that I just noticed, and I know now everyone can easily get this mask in this entire costume. But thank you, YouTube subscribers. You just got that little bit of a treat of me being a nerd. I thought about wearing it the whole time, and then I realized my level of dorkiness is not that high. All right, for you podcasters listening along, thank you very much. Thank you everybody for subscribing to Take Two Podcast. My name is Brian. I'm your host here, and thanks for jumping into this specialty episode, spin-off episode, whatever you may call them. We've done many of these in the past, and hopefully some more in 2022. But listen, I absolutely love Scream. The horror genre in film is not my favorite, but I do love the slasher flicks. I'm big into the slashers. I don't like the demon stuff. That's boring. But the slasher stuff is fantastic. Love me a good slasher flick, and I love a good whodunit. And that's exactly what the Scream franchise is. You don't know who the killer is the whole time. And that's what I love the most about the Scream franchise is we don't know that it is Jason coming after you the entire time. We don't know it's Krueger. You know, in those films, they're phenomenal. But you know the killer there. The Scream franchise adds a little bit more to it. Not only are you trying to get away, you're also trying to figure out who the hell's trying to kill you and why. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to dive back all the way through all 4 Scream movies that have dropped from 1996, 97, 2000, 2011, and today, going forward, I'm seeing Scream this weekend. Already have tickets in hand. Very excited. So next week, episode 275, you will get a full review on there. If you're listening to this afterwards, folks, and you're kind of circling back, my review of Scream 5, Scream 22, whatever they're calling it now. I mean, they're just calling it Scream. Will be on that episode and that episode alone. Before we get rocking into this, if you're listening to this / watching this / pun intended, spoilers. I don't think you should listen if you haven't seen these films because I'm going to speak absolutely freely about all of these movies. If you haven't seen the films, go watch them. They're a blast. They're a lot of fun. In fact, come on over. I did rewatch all of them recently, as I feel like a lot of people have been doing of recent, which is fantastic because it's my favorite horror franchise that's out there, and I love that everyone's just jumping on board. I shall be breaking down 1, 2, 3, and 4, so stick along. This won't be very long, guys. This is just going to be fun, me geeking out about a favorite franchise. But at Take Two Podcast for Twitter, Take Two Podcast at gmail.com for the email. 667-365-8253. That's the hotline in there. You can call that number, and making a cell phone call means a whole lot more during this episode because that is the crux of this. My son, he really jumped into Halloween this year, like super jumped into it, like almost to a creepy level. Like, should we have you talk to someone on the side, like professionally, because you're like really into the death and murder and things as a 4-year-old. Is this like a precursor down the road? We just thought he was nice. No, we didn't. He was into Spirit Halloween from age 4. Either way, he like trivia'd us on the way to school today, and he was like, "Hey, Dad, do you know what Ghostface uses to kill people?" And like jokingly but meta jokingly, I was like, "A cell phone?" And he was like, "No, he uses a knife." And then I was thinking in my head, which is the bigger killing device here? Which is the more scary device? Yes, of course, Ghostface uses a knife and occasionally a gun and sometimes a television set, whatever, to kill people. But did she also use a cell phone? Was that more of a scary device and more so a talk on society of where the cell phone has brought us to this day since 1996? Who would have known? All right. Thanks, everybody, for jumping on board. Don't forget you can follow on Instagram and Facebook. Lots of fun stuff there as well for Take Two Podcast. Again, here we go. ScreamCast, baby. My host's name is Brian. Yes, it is. I mean, that's a true statement. My host's name is Brian. My name is Brian. I am your host. Let's get scary. 1996 rolls along. Wes Craven wants to, he gets asked to do this scary movie. There's a young, brand new screenwriter named Kevin Williamson out there, and Craven's like, I don't know if I want to jump on. And they said, no, we got this girl, Drew Barrymore. She's phenomenal. She's hot right then. Her career, at least, was hot then. And she's attached. She's going to be playing the lead. And Craven's like, nah, I don't really want to do it. Okay, you got Drew Barrymore. I'm in. Let's do it. Show me the script. Oh, wow. I really, really like the script. This is some good stuff here. Okay. I'm in. So we get Wes Craven, the godfather of horror films, right? Of the horror genre, maybe. I mean, that's an argument for another day of who the greatest horror director of all time is. I think most folks would say Craven, but Carpenter's in there. Other folks are Robert Rodriguez, whatever you want to say. Either way, Craven's in. 1996. Here we go. We round out the cast. We get this entire cast for a short budget of only $14 million. Neve Campbell, Dave Arquette, Courtney Cox, Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard. Now, this is 1996, so at this time, if I just dropped all those names in your lap, you'd be like, don't know. Okay, the girl and friends, got her, check. Neve Campbell, yes, I've heard of her name. Okay, check. Henry Winkler, yeah, I know him. He was in Happy Days 30 years ago. Oh, but we got him in this. Jamie Kennedy, he's a funny comedian, kind of younger. I kind of know that. And you have Drew Barrymore. Yeah, we all know her. Rose McGowan, meh. Either way, this is your cast in 1996, and a lot of folks don't know any of these names. I think that's what's the best part about this. I remember vividly, folks, Drew Barrymore being on Late Night Talk Show and just promoting the hell out of this film. And it hyped me up for it. I was a Drew fan, as anybody else, and was just like, yes, this is great. She's the lead in this new scary movie. It's a new Wes Craven. Let's rock on. And then we got into the opening scene. We'll circle back to that from there. But I thought the promotion of Drew Barrymore and the way she promoted the film was some of the best marketing that these folks ever did on the Scream movie. Now, quick numbers before we actually dive into said film. Just gave you the cast, just gave you the budget, $14 million. Opening weekend, it only makes $6.3 million domestically. That's it. What happens is word of mouth comes out and they're like, yo, this movie is good. That was me. I was guilty. I wanted to see it. I didn't see. I remember I did not see it opening weekend. Granted, I'm only 15 at the time when this movie comes out, so it was rated R. I had to try and sneak in because it was released December 20th, 1996. Either way, hour and 51-minute runtime. Word of mouth spreads. You all got to check this out. Guess what? Eventual run, it finishes with over $100 million in the box office domestically. Worldwide combined, $173 million. Pretty darn good for 1997. Released the final week of 96. So pretty darn good numbers right there. The movie comes in with a Rotten Tomatoes score of 79 for the critics and 79 for the audience. That's solid. That alone tells you the word of mouth and the critics both loved this film. There was a lot that went into the making of this movie, and it was crazy. So I'll go through some fun facts. We'll go through the movie a little bit, and then just kind of blow through this real quick, guys. I'm just kind of waxing poetic about a movie that I absolutely love. We're not going to break things down like, not going to mind blow you here on a lot of things. I will tell you this, that after this movie was released, Caller ID saw their sales skyrocket and almost triple through the roof. People needed that Caller ID. Now, kids out there listening, back in the day, you had to have a separate box in your home that was your Caller ID box. Phone company would come, they would install it, connect it to your telephone, bing. So someone would call, and then you'd have to go over here and look at this box. Oh, it looks like Beverly is calling me. And then that would tell you the number. I don't even know if the original ones had the name attached, just the phone number is all you would get. So now cell phones today, it's like suggested Beverly calling. It tells you off the top. But back then, you actually had to buy Caller ID. So sales went through the roof at that point. A lot of things about this movie, because of the word of mouth, skyrocketed. Thanks all to this movie. Now, here's why I love this film. The horror genre was in place. It had hit a little bit of a lull at this point. And what they decided to do with the Scream movie was just pay homage to all the great horror films in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Your Halloweens, your Nightmares, everything, right? Now, I'm a big, to that point, I was a giant Halloween fan. Halloween's my favorite scary movie of all time. To that point, right now, I would tell you it's 1 and 1A with Scream. Those are my 1 and 1As. Ooh, spoiler alert for later on when I give you my rankings of where Screams rank. Anywho, they say we're going to pay homage, and they do that from the get-go. And I think that's what's absolutely beautiful, i.e., when the parents come home and they see Drew Barrymore and the dad says, go to the Mackenzies, that line is in Halloween. Laurie Strode tells that to Tommy and Lindsay and says, go to the Mackenzies. That's straight out of Halloween. So little things like that they pay attention to. The Loomis character, Loomis is obviously Dr. Loomis from Halloween. A lot of little things in there that you add in, and if you pay attention, just pay homage to the horror franchise. And I think that's what was beautiful about this film. So all of your horror heads came out and they're like, yes, They're just subtle little nods, subtle little nod, subtle little nod. And that's why I'm loving it, because it's like, yes, it's bringing me back. It's made me want to go back and rewatch all those films too. By the way, this movie's freaking great. It did win a Best Picture of the Year award. MTV Movie Award, that is, but still, it won a Best Picture of the Year award. Okay, so there's other homages in there, a thousand of them. When Billy climbs through the window, right? That's straight out of Nightmare on Elm Street, climbing in through the window, what have you. So there's little things that they had in there. Now, let's circle back to the beginning, shall we? Drew Barrymore's cast. She's going to play Sidney Prescott. Going on, Drew Barrymore says that she realized it might be more impactful if I don't. And I think there was some scheduling in there too, where she's thinking this is going to be a hit. She bought in from the beginning. And I don't know if I can do multiples here. B, I think it's better for me and my career and for this film if the bigger name star gets killed in the beginning, the opening scene, right? She's absolutely right. She winds up is one of the most iconic scenes in cinematic history. For my money, folks, top 5 inarguably line of dialogue in cinematic history, all films, is I want to know who I'm looking at over the phone. When he drops that line over her, and she's, who I want to know who I'm looking at, instead of talking to, for my money, that's one of the top lines in cinematic history of dialogue. Because that just, from there, that set this horror franchise in motion of like, timeout, what? I'm sorry. What'd you just say? You're looking at me from outside? Like, your level of scary is now on. Completely turned on. So, either way, that opening scene, everyone knows that we're well familiar. Barrymore, whatever. She made the right choice. She drops out of Prescott. She drops into that role, gets murdered to lead things off. And for my money, I was blown. Because remember, as I just mentioned, I was all set to see Drew Barrymore as the lead of this film. I wasn't expecting her to get murdered. Nobody was. And that's what even threw everybody else off too. That's why the marketing of this movie was so good. So good in here. Okay, Courtney Cox had to convince Wes Craven to be in her role. She really wanted to get something different. She was well known for her Friends character. She needed something different. She wanted to be the bitch, in her words. She wanted to be, that evil-ish character, someone that you might think might even be the killer to that degree. And it was a totally different change from her Monica Geller character on Friends. And she had to convince Craven to do it, because Craven said straight up, no, you're the lady on Friends. People are going to see the lady on Friends. I don't want you. Credit to Courtney Cox. She did a phenomenal job. And I'm curious, folks, especially the younger crowd, who do you know Courtney Cox better for right now? Is it Friends, or her role there, or her role through the Scream series? Or obviously Ace Ventura. Obviously it's Ace Ventura. I apologize. Okay. Fun fact. I wrote down a fun fact. They used 50 gallons of blood to make this movie. 50 gallons of blood. That's insane. All right, so Williamson Craven, they obviously struck gold here. They make a great movie. For my money, Billy and Stu, they trick you throughout. They have you guessing throughout who's going to be the killer. The only way you know people aren't the killer is they whittle them down one by one as they chip away. Can't be them, that guy's dead. Can't be him, that guy's dead. Can't be her, she's dead. You throw in the death of Rose McGowan in the garage door opener, which that's a hell of a garage door opener. I can tell you the sensor on my garage door, if like a leaf blows, it's like, nope, stops. It won't go any further. So the one that they have in that house, I mean, it's a nice house, so they probably invested quality money into a quality garage door opener. Unfortunately, it winds up killing Casey. Either way. I think the big surprise when we find out that it is two killers, you think that Billy dies. Spoiler alert, right? We already said that earlier. Spoilers? Yeah. We think Billy dies. He doesn't die. We bring down Stu. Now we find out their motives. You got to have a motive. We get introduced to the rules of surviving a scary movie thanks to Randy. All of that is so fantastic. And I think the other part of this movie, why I love the movies, is I love movies, right? This is a movie podcast. I'm obviously into movies, so are these guys. So is Randy. Like, I identified with Randy. Who didn't identify with Randy? Well, people who don't love movies as much as I. But you guys are listening, so you're probably the same, right? We all identify with Randy because he's just this big movie lover. And there are aspects of the movies that you have to absolutely love. I don't think Stu and Billy were that into the movies as Randy was, but they still played along. And it played perfectly into their murder spree. It was perfect. Their motive was that it was his mom broke up their family, or his dad got his family broke up. Excuse me. What's her name? Sydney's mom breaks up their family. Stu, the guy was just a nut job. Played brilliantly by Matthew Lillard. Brilliantly. Like, I don't know if other actors could have played that character to that degree as well, right? Because he just was completely over top the entire way. This complete red herring, but then it turns out not to be. Just absolutely phenomenally done. Absolutely loved everything about it. There's rumors, I've seen it out there, he's going to be back in this one, right? You never really saw him die. You kind of did. And actually, there were rumors in the other films that he was going to come back in them. Like, he had like a scarred face and everything from the TV being dropped on it. Like, you saw him get electrocuted, but he was kind of okay, and he came out, and then blah, 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 blah. Either way, hey, if Stu shows up in part 5, we'll just call it, for all intents and purposes, we'll call it part 5. That would be insane. I think I will scream at the television, or at the big screen, i.e. like a Marvel movie, just like, yes, that type of thing. All right, so Scream, 1996, phenomenal. The world is back. Horror films are back, baby. It does everything. Williamson and Craven do a great job. And moving along, they immediately book a Scream 2 while this thing's in theaters. While it's getting word of mouth, and people are flocking to theaters to see it. It makes $100,000, as we mentioned, after that opening weekend. Kevin Williamson already had a 5-page treatment written for part 2 of what he was thinking he would do with the characters going forward. That gets greenlit immediately. They said, let's go, let's rock it. And they get the main cast all to come back. They film it immediately. This movie drops December 12th, 1997. It comes out to a Rotten Tomatoes score of 81 critic, 57 audience. Audiences didn't love it enough. I will be honest. I'm a little in that boat. I was a little, and we'll talk about why in a second. But either way, Craven and Williamson back together. This one's a 2-hour runtime, a little bit longer. Budget was $24 million, so they got a little more cash to deal with here. The opening weekend, $32 million this time, 32.9. Domestically, it winds up making $101 million, and then worldwide it makes $172. So just shy of the first one. I think some folks didn't love it. So now we're going to start to get really meta, right? We already kind of like Scream 1 to give you the subtle nods to the horror franchises. Now we're just going to get meta with a movie within a movie. We're talking about how this is all about the movies. Let's just lean into it, right? Perfect. Beautiful. We're in film class. We're now in college. The kids are going to school. Randy's running a film class. We get Pacey or Charlie Conway or the actor Joshua Jackson. Pick one. They're all in their film class together. Timothy Oliphant we get introduced to. Let me jump back in. Liev Schreiber becomes more of a role in this one. We get Jerry O'Connell. We get Laurie Metcalf. We get Timothy Oliphant. We get Jada Pinkett Smith, and then Omar Epps. And Sarah Michelle Gellar. Excuse me. Those are the main additions to the cast in this one. Obviously, there are a few other folks, but they have to die. So you just have to have people to die. Excuse me. Taking a quick swig. God, I love the Scream movies. Scream 2. So good. So good. Now we're in college, okay? And what happens after a year, which is ridiculous, is that now they made a movie about the Woodsboro murders. And as ridiculous as that seems, right? Can't believe this big, huge tragedy that happened in this small town. You folks would make a movie out of it. Wouldn't that happen in real life? Yeah, 100% it would. 100% it would. Is it a little effed up? Is it a little over the top? Yes, yes, and yes. Either way, they do it. So in the essence of this movie coming out, Stab is the name of the movie, which I really want a Stab t-shirt. If anybody knows where I can get just a Stab movie t-shirt, that'd be awesome. Amazon probably. Now everyone's into the movie again. Now this is where everyone can buy the thing, and this is where you get a brand new opening scene with Jada and Omar Epps. We'll talk about my opening scene rankings later, but I think the meta part here, the whole conversation they have is about black actors being on black movies and not being in horror movies. And I know that joke was made, I believe Halloween H2O made that joke, whatever. But in this was more of like an actual like on point conversation. And so I think Kevin Williamson was like a super smart guy, and he was writing things about society that maybe he didn't realize he was writing some accurate statements about society as he was just like touching on them in these horror movie scripts, right? Either way, they die. They're not the killers. We do get more Cotton Weary in this one. He gets more of a role because he's exonerated, and now he wants his time in the sun a little bit. We see a little bit more of him. He's also known, could he be the killer? It would make sense if he's the killer. We're not totally sure. I will say this. The popularity of Scream going into Scream 2 is that Tomorrow Never Dies and Titanic were both supposed to be released December 12th, that weekend. They moved. They pushed their release dates, pushed them up, if you will. But because they were worried about going up against Scream 2. That's insane. That's awesome. Good on them. This movie, we're in college. We're going to lose Randy. That's very sad. That's a major bummer. We are going to, but you need to lose some of the main characters as you go on. I wonder if they knew they were going to do 5 films, if they were going to kill Randy off after 2. Either way, the death of Randy was a big scene, and a big scene that I think made you realize you're really invested into these characters. I know it's only the second one, but like now I'm really like, oh crap. You just killed Randy. I loved Randy. Why would you kill Randy? And now, how much do I love Dewey? And how much do I love Gail? And of course, how much do I love Sydney? Either way, Sydney's trying to move on. She's got a boyfriend. Is he the killer? That's the storyline here. They're in college going forward. We find out that the killers at the end happen to be Billy's mom, and then just Mickey, played by Timothy Olyphant, played like crazy, wacky Timothy Olyphant. I think it's fun. I didn't love the killers in this one. I'll be honest. Didn't have spoiler alert for later when I ranked my killers. Just didn't love the route they went. It was one of those, I just have to explain it to you things, right? This character who's kind of been in the movie, and then we're going to give you this big, long dialogue about why I'm the killer, which is essentially what happened. Mickey goes on this big rant about the movies and becoming famous and whatever. We'll come back to that later, maybe around part 4-ish. But Billy's mom, that totally makes sense. And Laurie playing is a phenomenal actress. And so in the end, the motives, they hold water. They make sense. I guess I just didn't love who it turned out to be. Maybe I wanted it to be the boyfriend. But either way, Scream 2, solid movie, good Rotten Tomato score. Now let's book a Scream 3, shall we? At the same time, folks, Kevin Williamson gets popular. He does this little TV show called Dawson's Creek he's writing on, which is a big reason I watched Dawson's Creek. I was like, holy crap, the writer of Scream is doing this TV show? I gotta watch it. Talk about meta within the meta. What's the main character all about in Dawson's Creek? Making movies. He's a big movie guy, right? So I love Kevin Williamson stuff because he's all about talking about making movies. Anyway, maybe I'm just more of a Kevin Williamson fan than I am a Scream fan. Scream 3 comes. It drops February 4th, 2000. It was supposed to be December, but this thing got delayed. It got pushed. The amazingness that this movie got made is incredible because it just shouldn't have happened. Everyone's schedules were nuts. Kevin Williamson couldn't come back. He writes a script, a basic script for this, kind of bangs one out real quick, kind of like an outline, if you will. It's a little more than a treatment. It was an outline for it, but he can't stay on board to finish it up. So they bring in Aaron Kruger in to work with Wes Craven on this one. The scripts as they're writing this film are like, write a page, go film it. Write a page, go film it. Like, it's that level of we're just making this up as we go type of thing. Craven the entire time is battling the studio with budget and with MPAA rating and what are we doing with these sets. They wound up building the sets for Woodsboro and with nothing to do with them in the movie. So they said, well, let's just film some scenes of Sydney running through her old house, which is a replica here in Hollywood that she's filming. Like, they didn't have it all pieced together, yet they still were able to churn out this film. Here's the story. They now moved to Hollywood. Now they're filming it. Dewey's now living in Hollywood. They're filming another Stab film. And now a killer is going on a spree, killing the characters in the Stab film. Okay. Likening it to the original Woodsboro murders. Budget of $40 million. Opens up to a 34.7 opening weekend. Domestically, it winds up only making $89 million. That's over a third of its cash in its opening weekend. And then worldwide, it makes $161, which is a good chunk of change, but still, it doesn't compare to the other ones. And that domestic, boo. Rotten Tomatoes score 41 critic, 37 audience. By far the lowest. Now, this did break the record. This will help that opening weekend number for most screens shown for an opening weekend. 3,467 theaters this thing opened to for its opening weekend. And this is February 4th, Super Bowl weekend. This thing opens up. So it did good its opening weekend, but I think a lot of people didn't love it. Here might be why. Here's a cast that we added to. We had some Kelly Rutherford, Patrick Dempsey, Jenny McCarthy, Emily Mortimer, Parker Posey, Scott Foley, Heather Matarazzo. Matarazzo? What the hell? Her name is Matarazzo. Why would you say Matarazzo? That was weird. Then we have some good cameos in here. Jane Silent Bob, Carrie Fisher. Either way, the whole thing was a mess from the start. I was kind of rambling earlier because that is this film. Scream 3 was an absolute mess to make it. Here's the funny part, guys. I like this movie a lot. And I think people need to appreciate this movie a little bit more for the hoops that they had to jump through to make it. We're in Hollywood, so this is the ultimate meta of meta, right? A movie within a movie within a movie. Now we're literally on movie sets talking about making movies while we're in Hollywood. It's brilliant. It's a lot of fun. What Kevin Williamson originally came up with and then Kruger then tried to run with is now they're in Hollywood. The killer's killing off these actors that are playing the characters from before. Who's now going to be your killer? Here's the kicker. Nobody knows. They filmed 3 different endings to keep things off of the internet. They told everyone you weren't allowed to read the ends of your script. We'll come back to that a little bit later. But they made sure that even the actors in there didn't know who the exact killer was going to be for the most part because they wanted 3 different endings just in case. There was a rough schedule. Nev Campbell is busy as hell. She's filming nonstop with Party of Five and then Scream 3. She's working, 100-hour weeks at least. So everything was absolutely nuts, and they had to knock it out as fast as they could. If you notice, the majority of Nev Campbell's scenes are nighttime. There's a reason for that. It's because she was filming other stuff during the daytime. That's what's crazy. The same house that's used at the very end is the same house that's used in H2O, Halloween H2O, that big mansion of a home, which is pretty cool. The craziness about this script, we find out later that Sydney's mom tried to be an actress way back when. She tried to do what so many actresses tried to do back in the day and sleep their way up and to get some roles back in the 70s and 80s and whatnot, and it didn't work out. But because of that, she wound up having a son. That son, illegitimately, she just dropped him off on some doorstep, and he grew up in Hollywood, never knowing his mom. Tried to find out who his mom was, finds out that she moved out to the small little town called Woodsboro, and then sees that she's sleeping around there too. He's the one who fueled Billy and showed Billy video evidence of his dad sleeping with Sydney's mom, and that's what broke up their family. So he's the one that sparked the flame inside of Billy. That aspect of this, it's like, oh, okay, this is like some serious motive. It's a family member we didn't know about. Like, it's a huge round circle, it all comes full circle type thing. Like, he's the one that gave Billy the fire that sent him on the spree, just pushed him over the edge. Now he needs to do the job because Sydney's still alive, and bring Sydney out to there. There are aspects of this storyline that I absolutely love. I think the part I absolutely love about this film is that they really own into the movie within a movie. Well, how can you do that? You just go straight to Hollywood. I love the backlot stuff that they have in this film. I love the behind-the-scenes things they have in this movie. And I think this movie is the most fun movie because you just need to sit back, popcorn it, and just have a good time. Is it a mess? Sure. Does it rank on the bottom of most people's ranking list? Okay, but that doesn't make this movie bad. This makes this movie a lot of fun. And if you can just own into what they tried to do and the way they had to make this film, I think it makes more sense. And I know there's a lot of people that out there that just like really poo-poo this film and really hate this film. And I think you just need to take a second and realize, A, how hard it was to make this movie, and B, just how meta this movie actually was within itself. And it really, at the end of the day, became really smart with the things that they tried to do with the script. Either way, that's a lot of nice praise for a movie that absolutely is a mess. It owns its 41 Rotten Tomato score, as it should, and the budget was bad. Are we going to make another one after this? Yes, we are. The killer being Sydney's brother, it gave some more heart, gave some more depth to it. But now we have a family member that's trying to be a killer. We wouldn't do that again, would we? 2011. This movie was supposed to start filming in October of 2010, but then they have to push it with some budgeting and some scheduling issues that they had. And they push it, and it starts filming 15 years to the day that the original Scream in 1996 started filming. Fun factaroo. Hour and 51-minute runtime. Rotten Tomatoes score is 61 with an audience score of 56. A little lower. I think a lot of people have kind of come around on this film, and I will admit that I am one of them as well. $40 million budget. Opening weekend only makes $18.6 million. So a lot of people are not super thrilled about this one, okay? Domestically, it winds up only making 38 worldwide. It only makes $97 million during its entire run. So Scream 3, not great in a lot of people's eyes. I think even back then, it was just like, ugh. Like, you kind of ended it on a massive sour note. Scream 4, the love wasn't there. It's 11 years later. What are we doing with these characters? Why are we bringing them back? Ugh. I think it's why a lot of people were hesitant when we found out that we're getting this Scream. Because you already did this to me. You already did this to me once. I said goodbye to my characters. Now you brought them back. I got to invest again. That's why I think a lot of people didn't run out to love this. Now, here's why you should have loved it. Because Wes Craven said, I'm not coming back unless you bring me back Kevin Williamson. Guess what they did? They brought back Kevin Williamson. Woohoo! So we have a much better script to start things off with. This goes deep. They decided to really movie within a movie it on this one. The opening sequence of this one is hilarious because it tricks you into they're watching a movie and then two girls are watching a movie and it's like, oh, the opening of Stab 6 is actually the beginning of Stab 7. It's just them watching Stab 6, and that's what starts off Stab 7, and then it goes to a third one. Now, I will tell you this. That can be a little off-putting for some folks where you're like, all right, so wait, now am I watching? Am I watching Stab 8 actually now? Or is this actually Scream that now I'm watching? So I know for some folks that kind of, it took you a little bit of a journey there to get into, is this the actual movie I'm watching now, or are you going to get me again? Are you going to trick me again by go, nope, this is actually Stab 8? They did not. It stopped with 7. We return to Woodsboro. We head on back. We've got Sydney's cousin is now a teenager. She's a senior in high school. She's got a bunch of friends. They're in the movie club, cinema club, excuse me. And it's kind of just introducing us to new characters, and maybe we can take it down a new direction. That wound up not working. It wound up not happening. This movie didn't get enough love for them to now start a new franchise going forward. So we thought that what they were going to do was just wrap these characters. We shall see. Adding these characters: Lucy Hale, Shayna Grimes, Anna Paquin, Kristen Bell, Allison Brie, Hayden Panettiere, Emma Roberts, Marley Shelton, Rory Culkin, Adam Brody, Anthony Anderson. I mean, loaded. They loaded a ton in here. Just to name a few. I didn't even write everybody down here. So, acting in this film gives Emma Roberts the Friends hat trick, because she was also in a movie with Lisa Kudrow, and she was also in a movie with Jennifer Aniston. So congrats on Emma Roberts. David Arquette and what's the lady's name? Courtney Cox. They were actually divorcing during this film, so apparently there were some set tensions in this one. It was a little bit awkward. What should we do? But they both remained professional, and they wound up getting a divorce a little bit after this movie came out. It's well documented, obviously, that they broke up. They're back together. They broke up. Something that Craven really wanted to do here was introduce a CGI knife. So the majority of the time you see the knife being held by Ghostface, it's actually CGI'd onto there. So good on them, and that's part of the budget. Amazingly enough, all that budget didn't go to all those actors, big named actors that I just named. Some of that went to some of the CGI and some of the knife in there a little bit. During the very first initial table read of this film, they told everyone, stop reading at page 75. And they're like, what? They said, everyone, close up your scripts. We're all done. Do not read ahead. So they stopped reading at 75 so nobody could find out who the actual killer was. So the majority of the cast did not know who the killer was going to be until much later in the process, after they had already started filming. That's fun. That's fun stuff. Not that, there's cast leaks, there's crew leaks and whatnot, and they were on top of it. They're like, we're just not going to do it. So they had them stop right there. Now, a tragedy that happened on this set is that this is the first of the Scream films to not have Nick Cave in the Bad Seeds' red right hand. I really hope they bring it back for part 5, because when I think of the Scream movies, especially part 1, I do think of Nick Cave, and then I think of Nick Cave being in Dumb and Dumber, and then also in Peaky Blinders. Whatever. I always think of Scream, but this is the only movie that didn't have that. Some casting notices: they tried to get Lauren Graham to play Emma Roberts' character, to play her mom, Sydney's aunt or whatever, and then she wound up not being able to do it. That's kind of a bummer. That would have been neat. This Kevin Williamson verse of these types of shows with Dawson's Creek and Gilmore Girls and et cetera. The types of shows in his ilk had all of these actors and actresses in there. Really, really cool to throw Lauren Graham in there. All right, plot of this movie. We've already talked about the details and some of the fun facts already. Sydney's back. These kids are having a stab-a-thon. And there's a killer that's now back in Woodsboro, and we're going on another killing spree. Obviously, the plot here. Sydney has moved on with her life. She's written a book, and she's back in Woodsboro to promote her book. There was a rumor out there that there was a scene where Sydney is like the anniversary of her dad's death. Also, like her father passed away, just normally, if you will. And so it's her first time in Woodsboro since her dad passed away. That wound up not making the film. But either way, she's back. She meets up with her cousin. Didn't really know her cousin. They weren't really super tight. But her cousin now kind of owns Woodsboro. She has now become Sydney Prescott of Woodsboro, if you will, played by Emma Roberts' character. Now we have a killer on the loose, and that's it. Is she going after Sydney? Who's she going after? Again, the entire whodunit thing. The best part of this movie is they really kind of bring it back to center and redo the script in a good way. And I think that's why Craven really signed on to do this again, because he knew that Williamson put together a solid script. The studio did make Kruger come back in and polish up some sections that they didn't love of the script. Which sections they polished or changed, I'm curious. I'm wondering if the final hospital scene at the end, maybe, because it seemed different. It seemed like the script ended and then we added with the whole hospital and the way that all went down. So I'm wondering if that got changed by Kruger or not, or if that was all in with Williamson. The Rotten Tomatoes scores are low, 61 and 56, and I would put the Rotten Tomatoes scores higher. I think if people went back and rewatched this, and I did this too, because I remember after watching, I was just like, ugh, I don't love who they chose the killer to be. They chose the killer to be her cousin, and then apparently she had a secret boyfriend who was the cinema club kid who was essentially Randy. They finally decided to make the film geek the killer, which is who we thought Randy could have been from day one. A lot of us speculated watching that first Scream that we thought it was going to be Randy. They finally said, in the end, let's let the geek get the girl. Phrase from Randy. And make him the killer. Okay, kind of cool. The way he killed Hayden Panettiere was wild because it paid homage to the very first one, to when Drew Barrymore's boyfriend dies in the very first one, all taped up and whatnot. That was awesome. That was a good kill. This one has some solid ones. A guy does get shot in the ding-ding. That was a bummer. And then it does show like some craziness. What is her motive? Her motive is just to be famous, just to be the sole survivor and be famous. And then also she wants to become the next Sidney Prescott. She saw how famous Sidney became just from almost dying so many times. So now she's like, she wants that. And she decides she's going to film everything, all the murders, upload all the murders so everyone can see it, and then that'll make her famous. Solid motive, not bad. Jealousy of her cousin, not bad. Enjoyed it. There's worse motives out there, right? We talked about back in part 2 for those motives. I will say that when I first saw this, the most off-putting part to me was Emma Roberts is 5'2", and Rory Culkin's not that much taller. So when you find out the killers were, especially Emma Roberts, I was like, wait a second. I just watched a movie with Ghostface, who in the majority of the scenes is played by a taller, more intimidating actor. Now I have to believe that it was actually Emma Roberts the entire time, or at best, Rory Culkin. Like, he's 5'9", maybe. So I think that's why when she whipped off the mask, it was like, what? That's not the person I was watching this entire movie, right? So now's where you get nitpicky, and I think this is where a lot of people who don't like part 3 would get nitpicky with it. And so then now on the rewatch, I was like, well, let me not do that. Now let me not do what people do with part 3. Let me not totally nitpick that aspect of it. Still have fun because it is a horror movie at the end of the day. It fits better. The scene where she beats herself up, is, there's like Jim Carrey and Liar in the bathroom beating himself up, and then Emma Roberts beating herself up at the end of Scream 4. Fantastic. Throwing herself through the glass table. Absolutely love it. So, there you go. Solid ending. They wrapped things up there. Could they have ended the franchise then? Sure. Did they think they were ending the franchise then? Probably. Especially with Arquette and Cox not together, all the off-the-field things. They probably thought they were done so, and the way they wrapped it. They decided not. Scream 5 comes out this weekend as you're listening to it. Probably out right now. Some of you may have already seen it. I won't have my thoughts until next week, episode 275. So if you want my thoughts on Scream 5, it's then. Let me give you some rankings real quick. I will tell you, folks, I struggled making these rankings. I struggled. Absolutely did. Number 1 film for me is One. You can't beat the OG. And some of these other films have elements that I absolutely loved phenomenally. But I have watched Scream Part 1 more times than I could even come close, fathom counting. And I'm not just talking about like Halloween season rewatches. Just overall, when it first came out, seeing it multiple times in theaters, and then seeing it once I first got that VHS tape, the DVD, then the Blu-ray, you name it. One comes in at number 1. And now I honestly wrote this down. If I could show you guys, crossed them out multiple times. I was like, and then what? And I did just rewatch everything. So I have, everything is fresh in the brain. I'm not just like nostalgically ranking this. So 1, 2, 4, 3. There you go. That's my ranking. But I will be honest, at one point I had 3 in the 2 seed. I had 3 in the 2 slot. And then I had 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like, you know what? I just like them in that order. And I promise you, this does not mean that just because 3 is in 4th place, it's bad. It just happens to fall in 4th place for me. That's it. I absolutely adore all of these films for what they are. At 3, you just have to buy in and absolutely love it for what it is. So I decided at the end of the day just to go with the filmmaking aspect, the storyline, what have you. I could drop 2. I could easily drop 2 because I did not love the killers in 2. The killer reveal in 2 I did not love. So I could easily drop it. But we will stick with this. 1, 2, 4, 3. That's my ranking of where they are. Werewolf Part 5, if you will, rank. We shall see. I shall re-rank them on episode 275. You will hear where I have that. There will be some recency bias on that, of course. Killers, I'm ranking them 1. Nothing beats Billy and Stu up to this point. I mean, literally, everyone is a copycat since then on purpose. That's what the films were about, them being copycats of Billy and Stu. You can't beat the OGs. 1. Then I'm going The Cousin. 4. I'm going part 4. Emma Roberts' character as the second best killer. I like the brother. I guess I like the family thing. What does that say? My siblings, beware. 3 comes in third place for me, and then 2. I hated the killer reveal at the end. I liked that it was Billy Loomis's mom. I just didn't like she found Mickey on the net, and he was just a psychopath, and I don't know. I guess I liked the "It's always someone you know." That's the tagline for part 5. It being her cousin with the jealousy and being famous, and then it being her brother, where he's had this residual the entire time. Now that I think about it, I might move 3. I might go 1, 3, 4, 2 in the killers. 1, 3, 4, 2. We shall see. Opening sequence. That's a big thing with the Screams. Who dies in the very beginning? 1 can't be Drew Barrymore. One of the greatest scenes in cinematic history. You can't beat that. 4 to me comes in at number 2 spot when we do the movie within a movie within a movie, right? Plus now you get some celebs in here. Like, you really want to get meta with it. You get a couple of celebs in here. You have freaking Kristen Bell killing Anna Paquin. Awesome. Tells her to shut up and watch the movie. Like, it's fantastic. Stabs her in the belly twice. Alana from Frozen stabbing Rogue in the belly. Rock on. And then 3 and then 2. The Cotton Weary death, that whole opening death scene. 1, you're losing Cotton Weary. I think I forgot to mention that earlier. You lose Cotton Weary, which is huge. And just the scene with inside. And then this is when you're introduced to the alternate voice changer aspect of it. And then 2, that opening with Jada and Omar, like, it's good, but I don't know. He's listening to another guy in another stall kind of play with himself. That's gross. Why would you listen? Like, if you heard another guy doing that, why would you, like, lean in for a better listen? That's awkward. And then he gets stabbed through the thing. All right, I guess that's a sharp knife. And then Jada gets murdered in front of all these people. I understand it was a rowdy, very raucous theater house. Like, the place was rocking, and she winds up getting stabbed and nobody notices. But, I don't know. Now, her death, like that scream, oh, that's embedded. I did a horrible impression right there forever. But opening deaths, 1, 4, 3, 2 for me. Best cameo out of all these. Man, I tell you what, that Carrie Fisher, like, is that one of the best cameos of all time? Is one of the most, her talking about being Princess Leia, not being Princess Leia. Then she gets to throw in her joke about banging George Lucas, which is a joke that she's run many times over. I don't know. In rewatching, I was just thinking, is this the best cameo of all time in all movies in movie history? If it goes to Carrie Fisher, I'm all for it, because we all love the Carrie Fisher. And then I've already mentioned beforehand, guys, I honestly feel, because I want to know who I'm looking at, is one of the best lines of dialogue in cinematic history. Cinematic history, one of the best lines of dialogue of all time. Truly believe that. I firmly believe that with every ounce of my soul. That's it. ScreamCast. That's it, guys. I probably just sat here and rambled for 40 minutes about these movies, and sometimes, as critically as we can break things down and overthink things with these films, sometimes you just have to sit back and be a fan. And I think maybe that's more of what this podcast was today. Me just being a fan of these films. Do I love them too much? Yep. Did it show in my bias right now? Yep. Am I mad at it? Nope. It'd be like perfect right now. I shouldn't say this. Like, as this ended, if all of a sudden, like, behind me, because we're watching the video for you YouTubers, like, if all of a sudden then behind me it was just like, like, I actually got, I'm not even gonna say it out loud. I just scared myself. Is anyone behind me? No. Okay. I just scared myself. The closet's that way, so we'll be good there. Let's end this podcast before it gets awkward. ScreamCast, Take Two Podcast, at Take Two Podcast for Twitter, Take Two Podcast at gmail.com. 6673-6582-53 is the phone number. What's your favorite Scream? What's your favorite scary movie? I can't believe I didn't say that this whole time. I didn't even get that in there. Which one is your favorite Scream? Give me your ranking. Give me your ranking of killers. Which one's your favorite killer? Give me your ranking of those opening death sequences. Which ones are your fave? I would love to hear from all of you guys on the socials, Instagram, Facebook as well. Can't wait to watch part 5. Can't wait to talk about it some more. And honestly, folks, hit me up on the side. I would love to hear your thoughts on Scream. Have a great night, everybody.